Here you have 20 basic shortcuts for Blender. The first one is the Add menu, Shift A. This is one that you're going to use a lot in your projects. From that one, you're going to add geometry, cameras, lights, and so on to your scene file. There are two ways to get rid of the objects that you have in your scene file. The first one is by pressing Delete in your keyboard. The second one is by pressing X. With this shortcut, you could also delete vertices, edges, and faces. If you press T on your keyboard, you will have access to the tool shelf. In this one, you have a lot of useful tools, and they will change depending on the mode that you are in. If you press N in your keyboard, you will have access to the right sidebar. With this one, you could change some of the parameters that your object has, like the location. For example, it could be your entire object or just a single vertex. You could also control the location of your 3D cursor. You could disconnect the faces of an object by pressing Y. It could be one or an entire selection. If you press Shift G, you could select similar places of your object, like the vertices or the faces or even the edges. If you select a face of an object and press H, you will hide this face. If you press Alt H, you will unhide these faces. Finally, if you want to solo some faces that you already select, press Shift H. You could move, scale, and rotate your object by pressing G, S, or R. You could also select a specific axis for this action. Let's move this object in Y axis by pressing G and Y. Now let's move it in X and Z. And also works for rotation and scale. By pressing Ctrl Tab, you could access the different modes that we have in Blender, like Sculpt mode, Object mode, Weight paint, Vertex paint, Texture paint, and edit mode. Blender has a Toolbox menu. To access this one, it could be one of two things. In my case, it's F3. You could change this behavior and use the spacebar instead of F3. To do this, you just need to go to Edit, Preferences, Key Map, and change the spacebar action. If you press Shift D, you will create a copy of your object. If you press Alt D, you will create a copy of your object. But in this case, the copy will be linked to the original one. So if you change something on the original one or add a new material to that one, the copy will match that original one. By pressing E on your keyboard, you will extrude faces, edges, and vertices. This is another tool that you're going to use a lot in your projects. By pressing I on your keyboard, you could create an inset of your face. You could also select multiple faces to create this inset. And you could also combine this one with the Extrude tool. If you want to create rounded edges for your object, press Ctrl B and add some segments to this Bevel tool. If you use a subdivision modifier, you could select an edge and then press Shift E to control the sharpness of this edge. If you select one part of your model, you could press P and separate this one into a new object. You could join a lot of objects into a single one by pressing Ctrl J. If you want to merge different vertices, you just need to press Alt M. And you could select the one that you need from the menu. By selecting different nodes or selecting different parts of this one, you could connect these nodes by pressing F on your keyboard. I hope you find this video useful.